Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. A special show today. My guest today has a position many in real estate don't even realize is there, but is responsible for so much. My guest today is the Chief Executive Officer of the St. Augustine St. County Board of Realtors. She comes from a deep experience as the Mid-Indiana Board of Realtors VP of Professional Services, a director with the Indiana Real Estate Commission, amongst other positions with the state of Indiana. During this year of transition, she has stepped in and stepped up the profile of the St. Augustine St. John's Board. Let's welcome Jeanette Langford to the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you coming on. And as we were talking pre-show, I'm really curious. And I know if I don't know, because I mean, I'm not saying I'm in the board all the time, but I probably have been in the board than a lot of real estate agents have. And going in, whether it's doing a class or just interacting with leadership there. Mm-hmm. And, what really is the CEO doing? Because I think most agents know like who's on the board. There are other real estate agents who have been, worked their way up to being president of the board, but what does the CEO do? And I'm really curious of what that is and tell a bit. And obviously, the vision that you have, you're coming in new. This is a year of transition in real estate. And I imagine you guys have been dealing with that all summer.
Yeah, absolutely. So as to your question of what does the CEO do?
Well, we'll get there.
Okay,
we're going to work up there. We're going to warm you up a little bit from that sort of. But I as I always do, I troll through everyone's their LinkedIn. And get a profile, and your resume's on there very well. You worked your way up through Indiana in the I called it political world, but you were a civil servant for the state of Indiana, worked your way up through many positions. You didn't even get your college degree till later. Mm-hmm. So obviously you were earning it on merit, not just because you had a piece of paper and made your way up. So I really want to dig into that. But tell us a little about Indiana, where you're from, and then, as a young Jeanette, what was you thinking about career and what got you into working for the state?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, it's not a super interesting story, but my husband and I, Joey, have come. Well, actually, we lived in Monrovia, Indiana, before we came here. I started working for the state of Indiana back in 1992, I think. Started out working for the Indiana Secretary of State's office. I found the job in the newspaper. Actually, that was a thing back then.
Yeah.
I had just graduated from high school. I was a young mother, and I needed to find a good job that was Monday through Friday, and I didn't want to work weekends anymore. And so I lucked out and found a job working for the state of Indiana, making peanuts. But it was a good job. It was a good gig while I was raising my children. Mm-hmm. And, because I didn't really take the opportunity to go to college right out of high school, I made it my
goal.
Thank you. My goal to, show that I was ambitious, that I had a dream to make something of myself, if you will, and provide a good life for my kids. And so I did that. Yeah. I really worked really hard to pursue that next opportunity. And I did that through various positions through the state of Indiana for a total of about 21 years. If
you were coaching someone who, I couldn't do it. I could not work for the bureaucracy for 21 years. That's just not me. I'm going to buck the system. But advising, because there are people who are fit for that job. Obviously, you were fit for that job, but there is to use a lack of better words, the politics of the day, dealing with personalities and so forth, because there is a lot of that. Like it happens in every corporate office. Who likes who's that type of thing, who's related to who, or whatever that situation is, but advising someone on a career, what did you, in 21 years, you had to either naturally or you developed or just figured it out how to work with other people to get things done who might have totally different ideologies, as we have in politics, right now, the country being, divided left and right, as we like to call it. But you had to work, 21 years, you had many different administrations. Imagine you had many different bosses during those times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will tell you, I mean, it was much like working for any other organization through most of the positions that I held until I got to being the director of the Real Estate Commission and the Appraiser Board. I also had Home Inspectors Licensing Board and Auctioneers, several others.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until we got, you get to that point where your next option is really more of an appointment. It's more of a political position.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did do that job for about 5 years with the Indiana Real Estate Commission and the Appraiser Board. And I recognized that I didn't want to get into the politics, right? It just wasn't my thing. And it was time for me to move out of working for the state after 21 years. I mean, the good news is I was vested. I had my, I did my time, if you will.
Yeah.
And during that time, though, it also afforded me the opportunity to go to college and get my bachelor's degree so that I could move on.
Because obviously we're going to relate this to working, in your position with the board, your pivotal position. It's probably lucky it's a small board, although you've worked with the mid Indiana, which is a much larger board than where you're at now, but you still are dealing with personalities, and the presidents are moving through every year. They're only there for a year. Mm-hmm. The board's slowly migrating, constantly changing. When you were with the state of Indiana, did you, being the, like I said, the bureaucrat, that you're executing your job, hey, we're getting people licensed, but people come in with different, how we're going to do things.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that? Because you were in leadership positions, you had people working for you, so you're getting it from the top down. Hey, you could probably give me an example. I could just imagine there was changes. That's the only thing. I don't know of them, but how you dealt with taking that change from the political appointed position or the politician themselves comes down upon you, and how you handle that and disperse that amongst your team.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't always easy, and those are things that it can be tough to navigate. Mm-hmm. I think the number one important thing that I did is that you have to earn that trust. And as long as you have trust from the people that you work with, whether they're below you or, it's the directors that you're working with, the group, the Real Estate Commission, or the Board of Directors, or even someone politically above you, when you have that trust, then you can navigate those relationships a lot better. And so I think that is the focus, is that you've got to be able to establish that relationship and establish that trust, and then it's easier to deal with.
All right, so I'm going to ask her, this is a really good interview question. You may have been asked this when you were interviewed. So something comes down to you, because you've been doing it, you're in it. You see how the process has worked, and assuming your team is working efficiently, doing what they're doing, but someone tells you something that you don't totally agree with. How did, if you were coaching someone, how did you filter that? Like I said, the trust, they're going to execute because they trust you. You're a leader. That's like and trust. Just like a real estate agent needs to sell, they like and trust is a big part of the relationship part. I totally understand that. But how did you? I guess I want to dig into your mind. How did you, dwell on that? I imagine you probably lost sleep a couple nights when these things come down. Maybe you can give us an example of something that came down you didn't totally agree with because you've been doing it.
Oh gosh, it may be hard to give you a specific example,
right,
but I can at least tell you my approach on those types of in those types of situations.
Yeah.
I have learned, and trust me, this is not something anyone is born with, right? So you learn it over the years. But one of the most important things is that you don't react too quickly. You need to sit on things. You need to think on things. Don't act upon your first impulse. Because there are a lot of times where things, I'm being asked to do things or communicate things that I may not agree with, but I need to not push back on it quickly. I need to sit on it, think on it, maybe even run it past some trusted individuals, and then figure out how to navigate it.
Implement it.
Sometimes it is something that I truly have to say, okay, here's my concern. And just be frank with whoever it is that's asking me to do something that I think would be not advisable. And I try to provide that advice.
Yeah.
And that actually kind of feeds into the answer to your earlier question of what the CEO does. That is a big piece of it, is giving that advice.
Because hopefully you're doing a good job. The boards come and go, and you'll be there, and boards will change over, as people migrate through, and you're going to have different personalities. New people come in, although I have found the few people that I have interviewed that have been on boards, whether it's NEFAR or St. John's, they're not so apt to ruffle the feathers too much. They're not like, oh, I'm going to be president next year and I'm going to make all these changes. They kind of ease themselves and realize they've got 12 months, maybe pick one or two pet projects, if that, but keep everything moving forward without really causing too much tidal waves.
I like to have that happy medium. I really do not think it's a good idea to be the type of leader where you're really not a leader, where you're just kind of stay under the radar, trying not to ruffle any feathers. Now, granted, I know how to pick my battles, right? You got to learn to pick your battles.
That's what I'm digging at.
But also, you don't want to have an organization that gets so far away from their true mission that you're really creating a bigger problem for the next president, the next leadership, and then you're kind of left with this beast that's kind of gotten out of control.
Right.
So I try to make sure that I toe that line, that I know that some things are not worth a battle. It's not a big deal if somebody wants to do something a particular way. I don't care what color the linens are for the breakfast or whatever.
Right.
But the more important things, I'm not afraid to push back on and give good, valid reasons why.
Right.
Yeah.
Your position at MIBOR, Mid Indiana Board of Realtors. Tell us a little about what you were doing there, because I had the title as VP of Professional Services.
Yeah. So let's see. I was there for about 9 years, and when I first started, it was coming out of working for the state for the 21 years and working for the Real Estate Commission. And I worked with the board of directors. Essentially, I managed the board of directors meetings, the hearings that would take place, and kind of calling real estate professionals on the carpet, on the licensing laws, right? If they were violating licensing laws,
like a compliance,
yeah. And so when the MIBOR position opened up, it was essentially the same thing, only as it relates to the code of ethics instead of licensing laws. And so it was kind of a really good fit for me. And after I started there, though, doing the professional standards work for MIBOR, it kind of expanded a little bit, which was great because I wanted more. It went into the professional development, so I started to oversee the leadership program there and all of the professional development that the organization provided. And then right before I left, about a year before I left to come here, I started working with the membership department to try to get that kind of shored up. It had some things that needed a special touch, if you will, and so I took that on as well.
So that was a large board, so they needed someone really designated to handle, like I said, the ethics and I imagine the undercover agents that are responsible for ethic complaints within the board and so forth that come. You're at St. Augustine. Do we have a designated person for that, or are you kind of maybe you covering some of that as the CEO?
Yeah. Well, you're looking at her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me. Well, and in my previous position, it was all about professionalism. I mean, that was really the focus of my job, was to ensure the professionalism of the members, whether it was code of ethics or really just generally professionalism issues. But yeah, I mean, now that I'm with the St. Augustine board, that is part of the
It's
position.
one of your hats.
Yeah, it's one of my hats. Now, not all associations do their own professional standards. Some of them contract with other associations to do it, or they contract with the state to do it. But because that's kind of my bailiwick, if you will, it comes easy to me. I am not sad about not handling so many complaints. I will tell you that. Luckily, we don't have too many at the St. Augustine St. John's board.
I wanted to listen deeply, and I lost train of thought on my next question, but it'll come to me. Golly, I hate when that happens. One of the things I told my wife with doing a podcast was it will train me to listen and not like
think of your next
but
question.
you know your brain's fighting you like, oh God, I got to lead into that next question. I guess from the, because I was trying to relate what you were doing at my board down to here, in the standpoint of, I imagine obviously more agents, you've got more complaints, some legit, some not. So you're handling, you're kind of the point person, right? Or you, because up there they would just come to you and say, here's my complaint, or email you or whatever it is, right?
Well, luckily I had a staff that would do that for me. So I essentially.
So there was that many complaints.
Yes, they were managing. The day-to-day on the code of ethics complaints, and my board would get about 100 or so a year. That we would have to process, but luckily, again, I had the staff.
How many are legit, percentage-wise? You just say are actually legit, or just you just have two real estate agents don't like each other?
Well, I will
just
say
curiosity.
In my experience, I would say as far as legitimacy to the complainant, I would say they're always legitimate because they do have a concern, an issue that they want addressed. So in that sense, I say they all are. What I see, though, is that a lot of times members and consumers take something that they think is unprofessional and call it unethical. And so there are a lot of times where consumers and, members, realtors, would file a complaint against a member and say, they did X, Y, and Z, and here's what they did. And really, it might be really unprofessional behavior, but it's not unethical.
Right.
And so that was probably the hardest piece of that job, is that we would have to tell, the consumer or the member, hey, sorry, they weren't found in violation. And they think that means that what that person did was okay. And it's, I've had many the long conversation with individuals on that side of it to explain that it doesn't mean that what happened is okay and that your concern is not valid. It just may not be a code of ethics violation.
Do you go back to the agent and, because so you got someone who's doing stuff that's borderline. You don't want them to fall over, right? Oh, hopefully, unless they intentionally want to go to the dark side, I guess, whatever you want to call it. Does a real estate board, or not necessarily board, or individuals, designated people, because I know they like to keep a lot of this stuff, below the radar, from the other members, people's names are not used and so forth, but to say, hey, this is the complaint we got. We found it to be unprofessional, in our opinion, not unethical, but you can keep yourself off that line. Do you have that kind of conversation with an agent?
I will tell you that I tried to, in my tenure, I've tried to always include that in the decision that gets written. I try not to talk about the complaint and give any additional information outside of that process that hearing panel determined. Right. So what we would do is we try to write the decision in a way that while this was not a violation of the Code of Ethics, we caution the member to clean up their act, essentially.
Yeah.
And so I try to communicate it in that way. Now, sometimes people want to call and talk about it, and that's fine. I give as much explanation as I can. That wouldn't be outside of what that hearing panel found.
Talking to other realtors, especially people in leadership and so forth. I know you've worked with NAR and so forth. We mentioned the Code of Ethics earlier. How important is it? And it's not necessarily maybe that takes up most of your day or most of your month, whatever your work schedule, but how important is it, because you're there at the board. Realtors come and go. Leadership just generally hang around for make their way. People want to be leaders. They take different positions, but you're the center point. You're there year after year, hopefully for a pretty long time. How important is I'm going to use the word reputation, like you said, the ethics that the board needs to. I'm going to use a fancy word, impermeate. Is that a good word? I don't know. To the members, because really, when it comes down to how we do business, versus say other countries or even other states, that I think a lot of agents take for granted. Like, here are the procedures. Hey, you've got a listed contract. You got a buyer broker agreement, whatever. All these different things are put in place so that the agent looks more, as far as it looks more professional, as the board and the state comes down to make it a professional business, and it's not a just running wild, basically. Because I've heard from people in other countries, you might have 3 or 4 different real estate agent signs in the same yard, right? There's no
right.
Yeah. So how important is it from in your position to have that blanket of a professionalism and holding those standards? Because it really, a lot of it comes back to you, because you are in the office every day. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's part of my role too, is to make sure that our members are seen as the professionals for the consumers, especially. It really does truly boil down to professionalism when we think about all of these things that are going on in the real estate industry right now, and all of the headlines and the issues that NAR has been dealing with, and then it's coming down to the locals. At the end of the day, the most important thing is that our members are seen as professionals, that they're the ones that the consumers need to go to for the best advice and guidance through these transactions. And if we don't provide that education and information to our members, then they can't be that. And I know, though, that their day-to-day is not worried about what does the code of ethics say about what I should do in this situation.
Right.
I get that. The important thing is, though, is that we are able to tap them on the shoulder when we need to. And I will just say this to that. One of the things that I tried to do at my board and did at my board, and I'm trying to bring here too, is that it's not just about, something happened, somebody should file a complaint, and it should go through the process. I like to provide the option of, tell me what happened. Let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. Can I reach out to the other agent? Can I send them a note, just a note saying, hey, this was reported to us. Here's why it's not great that happened. It might be contrary to the code of ethics. It might be considered unprofessional. You might want to change your practice. Have those conversations instead of just saying it goes straight to the complaint process, because that is really truly the goal, is to get people to raise the bar. I know that's
set a standard,
but set that standard. Yeah. And they're not thinking of that every single day. But sometimes all it takes is for you to pick up the phone and say, hey, what's going on? Just so you know, Code of Ethics says this, or this is how it was perceived. It's important that we keep, a lot of times the concern is that we're going to do things that continue to chip away at the consumer's confidence in what we do and what realtors do. And so anytime
it's really the completely opposite. You don't want that to hit the nightly news.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's what so when we have to take these opportunities to point things out to each other and say, hey, right. and if our members don't feel comfortable doing it with each other, then contact me. I'll make that call. You can be anonymous. That's fine. But that's the goal, right? At the end of the day, is that we make sure that our members are seen as professionals. Yeah. Period.
Would you say that if there's any one thing that is the most important part of the real estate board, is to set that standard, that culture, a high ethical standard, to obviously, because it only takes one bad apple. It goes around and does it enough times that all of a sudden it's on the news, and then every real estate agent's labeled to be that bad apple.
Yeah. I mean, that's such is life, right? That's unfortunately the way these things often work.
Well, I think, and I make that point because they're all self-employed. They're all 1099 employees, but they are seen as one large group.
Mm-hmm.
They're real estate agents. They're realtors. Wherever whether they work for Keller Williams or any of the other brokerages out there, they're all seen as one group. So it only takes that one bad apple. It's not, hey, that guy at Keller Williams is doing all the scrupulous stuff. He's on the news. It's not the guy at Keller Williams. It's that realtor.
That's right.
it, yeah.
And it's unfortunate that there some of the bad actors, cause that for the entire industry.
Yeah.
Makes
So the driving force of the board to set that, high level, obviously cut stuff off at the pass. Should something, get off the track, somebody starts doing something, maybe you've heard it once, but all of a sudden you heard it twice. Maybe I need to make a phone call now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think is important to note too is that different business models doesn't mean unethical. And so I think that, some members, some real estate professionals think, well, if they don't do it the way I do it,
right,
then it must be wrong. And that's just human behavior. That's how we think sometimes, unfortunately. Yeah. But having those conversations about, well, just, everybody has their different niche. Everybody has their different way of doing things. And as long as it falls within the code of ethics and it's not unethical, then it doesn't mean it's unprofessional. It just means that it's different.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I'm trying to read between the lines on where you were going with that. I sort of know what you're talking about, but from the standpoint, because obviously I've had a lot of different agents on. Everyone does their business differently.
Yeah.
There's some that are producing at high levels, and some people, I wouldn't run my business that way. Well, that's because hey, that's fine, but that's the way they run their business. It doesn't mean it's unethical. They're just doing real estate differently, and that's the beauty about the business is it can be done so many different ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It can be done lots of different ways, but the important thing is that it's done professionally.
Right.
In whatever way you do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's dig into let's dig into your position there, because that's what I want everyone. So we talked a lot about the CEO needs to make sure with the board, make sure you're setting that standard of ethics, everything in your zone. You're the mothership, and you're making sure everyone, people are not getting outside the lines, because the last thing you want people to get on the national news that St. Augustine Real Estate is scrupulous, right? Right. But what are some of the day-to-day things now that you have to do as CEO? And if you could find, what do you think is probably one of the things that you deal or have to deal with daily, weekly, monthly, maybe with your staff that a lot of agents probably don't even realize that you're doing?
Yeah. So, great question. Well, what I was going to say is it might be better to ask what don't we do?
Yeah.
As the CEO. But I will say I was actually pleasantly surprised coming here. No offense to my fam back in Indy, but Indiana realtors are at my board. It was. Probably because it was more, but it's
a larger organization.
It was a larger organization, but I guess I could say I was just what's the word? It was interesting to see how good the realtors here, our members, made me feel when I got here. Like I was wholly prepared for. Some of
we're changing. She's going to come in and change everything on us. Yeah.
That has not happened at all. It really has been wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But to answer your question, outside of the organizational day-to-day management of the association and the staff, my job really is to ensure that the board of directors, their strategic vision and their goals are on the right track, are met, and that I provide that advice along the way, like I talked about earlier. The other important thing is that our members believe that our organization is the best organization to be a part of. Our members have many choices. They could join whatever association they want that provides them with the services and the tools that they need and the benefits that they want to ensure their success. And
Right.
so my goal is to make sure that our board knows all of the different opportunities to make that come to fruition.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that leads into a great. So, how do you keep yourself abreast of what is going on? You know, I would imagine the focus maybe the state of Florida or the region, to make sure that you are advising them is, you know, something new comes up, something's happening at NEFAR, something's happening down at Flagler. How do you interact with those other CEOs? What do you do?
Yeah. Everything I can get my hands on. And as you can imagine, I'm getting constant emails. I'm talking with the other CEOs around the area, meeting with them, going to the Florida Realtors conferences, going to NAR conferences, rebar camps coming up in, next month. Honestly, it's kind of a fire hose of information.
Yeah.
At most times, but it can be hard to kind of pick out like, oh, that's important. I need to bring that to the board's attention. But it's something that you kind of you learn how to figure out what to look for and what to bring to their
How
attention.
does I would imagine Florida Realtors, because you all are answering up to them basically, you know, are connected to them. Do you guys have some meetings? Like, here are some best practices that we're doing. Hey, this is something new we found out. I mean, is it an open dialogue of questions amongst or conversation amongst CEOs around the state?
Yeah. Actually, I will tell you this, that the Florida Realtors Association is phenomenal. I mean, I'm not just saying that to toot their horn or whatever, but they have been a huge help to getting me acclimated when I first started here, because, you know, I'm very familiar with Indiana's laws and, you know, the inner workings of how the Indiana Association of Realtors works. But I really had no clue kind of coming into this, you know, what are Florida laws? What do I need to do? What are they used to doing? What are, you know, things are a lot
What's
different.
customary?
What's customary, those types of things. And immediately when I first got here, someone from their organization reached out to me. What do you need? Let's chat. Here's all the information. I mean, it has just been wonderful to be plugged into Florida Realtors. If I say, hey, I'm looking for this, they point me in the right direction. They've introduced me to some of the other players around the state that might be able to help me figure out a particular thing. It has just been phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah. Give us something? Is there any, like, I wouldn't say big law, but what are like just some immediate differences that you notice from us that have just been in Florida doing real estate, coming from out of state? What are like a couple things that you're doing differently in Indiana?
Well, as you probably know, Indiana doesn't have much waterfront.
You still have some flood areas, though.
Yeah, we got some lakes and some flood areas. Yeah, but the insurance thing is a lot different. Indiana, of course, I mean, all across country there's insurance issues, but I know that Florida kind of deals with it they're hit a little bit harder, if you will. Here, I think that the VRBO, Airbnb, short-term rental situation is a little more concentrated here, or a bigger issue here. But it was an issue in Indiana as well. In Indianapolis, they were always trying to fight for private property rights in Indiana, but it seems like it's a lot bigger deal here.
How much do you get involved in we just brought up insurance, right? And how much are you? Is that something you personally, as a CEO, really I guess the day-to-day minutia of like the contract and so forth? Do you have any touch on that in a sense of, or influence on because everyone has their opinion. I mean, there's been many trainings like on the buyer broker agreement and so forth and so on. You were not a practicing real estate agent.
Right.
Do you even involve yourself in some of those discussions?
Well, I certainly want to be involved. I think I need to be aware of what's going on and be in the know. But really, the way our organization might want to address or approach a particular issue, such as the insurance, really needs to be decided by the board of directors.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. What are so you came in mid-year?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what are some of the current, so Victor was working there before. You take over mid-year. You've got the same board for the calendar year. What are some of the current directives that are there that you are currently trying to execute for the board?
Well, I will tell you that I got lucky when I first got here. I think we were 10 days from getting ready to launch our data share, right? So the data share between Real MLS, Daytona, and Space Coast, and then Hernando County just came on live a few days ago. I was lucky enough not to be here for what I
having to work
understand.
through all that.
Yeah, the last 2 years of pain to get to this. I mean,
right.
Honestly, I commend them for the massive amount of work that they did to pull this thing off.
Right.
And when I got here, it launched on July 10th. I started July 1st. It actually went pretty good. I don't want to take any of the credit for it. I wasn't here through the, all of the work that it took to get us here. But I think it's a great thing. And I apologize, I can't remember.
So that was all right. So that project is
yes
done. Yeah. So what's kind of one of the things they're trying to work on right now?
Yeah. So we started thinking about 2024 was the year of hiring a new CEO and launching this data share. That was the focus.
The goals. Okay.
Yes.
The big ones.
The good news is that we, I've come in, I've tried to understand all of the things, right? It's taken some time to figure out what's the what, and then have some of the meetings with the brokers and try to get an understanding of, how they see the organization and where they would like to see it go. And then, of course, I have some ideas that I've shared with them as well. So some things that you could maybe see coming in 2025, if we want to talk about, what I'd like to see happen and what the board wants to happen, is that we're going to hopefully launch a new membership portal.
I had membership on my pad right here.
So
I was going to talk about that.
We're using an older platform right now, so we're looking at launching a new membership portal for members to be able to collaborate on projects and committee work, and have create their profiles so that consumers can search maybe our website for a particular agent if they're looking for someone that has a particular niche. I'm looking for somebody that knows about farmland or whatever it is. They can go in and search by that criteria and have, in random order, I understand, have that, all of the different agents available pop up. So that would be super cool to be able to do something like that. So that's one thing. The other thing we're going to launch in 2025 or probably towards the end of 2025 is a leadership program. So that's one of the things that I think might be lacking here, and something that the board of directors indicated that they wanted.
It's kind of like the leadership academy that NEFAR has, and then FAR has their own.
I mean,
thing
we need
there.
to be able to identify our future leaders.
I know they've had young people in there at different times, but go ahead. I was interrupting.
No, yeah, I mean, exactly. We want to get all kinds of schools of thought or different experiences into leadership, not only with our organization on our board of directors or on our committees, but maybe to, help those individuals find out what their passion is. Maybe they didn't realize that they wanted to go serve on city council or at the chamber, or that they were really love getting involved in community projects, and provide them with the information on the different opportunities that they have. So that's the goal for 2025, is to create that program and potentially launch it at the end of the year or early.
I'm going to put this in this next part of our conversation, because membership obviously is important, but you just mentioned leadership. And then you mentioned before that data share, because obviously before, if the MLS in St. Augustine's got a property, doesn't mean the people in Jacksonville can see it. So that was the whole point of the data share, right. For those who so they could go to that portal and cross over and see into others as well. The challenge that I imagine, I hope it's the elephant in the room with the St. Augustine board being small, is there's agents out there like maybe live in northern St. Johns County, which the unique part of St. Augustine / St. Johns County, there's a lot of agents that live along that 210 corridor from the river to the ocean. And they're like, well, I'm so close to Jacksonville. They joined this board in NEFAR and not participate. I mean, I assume they realize that down there, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you do? I would imagine, there's got to be talk or stuff to try to attract some of those people, or even maybe join both boards, mm-hmm. but to participate, because there is a great benefit in the smaller board. I've told people my opinion of some of the things that I see or perceive to see that goes on at a larger board like NEFAR versus the St. Augustine board. I can walk in there and it's a little more friendlier. It seems to be. I'm going to say it's not. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it's perceived to be, right. In my opinion. I spent more time in St. Augustine than I have at NEFAR, so I will disclose that part. So I may be just biased because I haven't spent enough time in the others. But to get some of those agents who are in that the good bulk of those agents to say, hey, we could participate in the St. Augustine board as well. Is there some discussion there to add some value? Because that's what they're going to look for. Mm-hmm. What board I'm going to join is what board's going to give me the most value, right? To get them to participate in St. Augustine as well. Yeah. Because we're only moving further south, so they're getting closer and closer to the actual board physically every day.
Right.
Yeah.
So the way I look at this is that members are going to be a part of the board that meets their specific needs the best. Mm-hmm. Whether it's location, because they want to do education and they like to come into the board to do that, and we provide the best education, or if it's because we provide the best tools, technology tools, lockbox, whatever, mm-hmm. fill in the blank. It really is about trying to figure out what it is that our members value the most. What is the best value that your realtor association can provide to you, or does provide to you? And then focus on those areas. Right. To me, and what you just said is what I hear a lot of members say, mm-hmm. is that being able to call the association with their question and get an answer, or know the person they're speaking to, or walk in the door and say, hey, can I talk to Jeanette? Mm-hmm. That's important. And I think that's the most important thing to me, is that if what a member wants is, if their focus is things that are not customer service or that type of thing, then maybe we're not the best association, or this other one over there is not the best association. But I think it's important to provide the best tools, service, education, whatever it is that our members think isn't the most important to them, but that we also provide that small town touch. So it's like that big town, mm-hmm. if you will, services, technologies, that kind of thing, but also no offense to the bigger associations, you kind of, you don't really have a choice, but call into a call center and then you get one answer from one person and a different one from another, or the CEO is not accessible and I really want to talk to that person about something. Right. I want to make sure that our association is that, that, and I want everybody to know that's listening right now, come see me. Yeah. Come into the office and say, can I talk to Jeanette? I told my staff, if someone comes in asking for me and I ask,
you're not in a meeting,
I'm not in a meeting. If I'm not in a meeting or I'm not on the phone, I am available, or tell them have a seat. I want to talk to our members.
Right. Is there anything out there right now that you've come across and talking to other CEOs? Maybe they're doing it down in Naples, but they're not here. Is there something out there right now that you would like to maybe pull in or get to learn more about, because it might be one of those things that the agents see value in, or maybe they don't even know it exists at the point, so they don't know there's value there, but it's a technology or service that you're not doing right now that you'd like to educate the board a little bit, that maybe is something we would think about?
Well, I do, but I don't want to talk about it yet. It's
Top secret.
Yeah,
Okay. All
a
right.
little bit. Yeah, I've got something exciting getting ready to, or we have something exciting getting
Well, I
ready
mentioned
to
the technology and
come out.
stuff is changing all the time, and there's another flashy trinket or something someone's putting out there. If a board's going to do it, like any government body, it can't just be a flash. It takes time. To obviously you got a board and then they get to do it. And you got to think about it, research it, how much it's going to cost, and all those. So it doesn't happen overnight. A broker, if they want it, they can do it right now, right? And change it. So it's a little different. But again, having that open door, so these agents, some of these agents are out there going to these conferences all over that you want them to come in and see you and tell you about some of the things maybe they saw there or they're doing
Absolutely.
in Arizona that
Exactly.
we're not doing here.
And I think this will be valuable for our association. We need to consider doing it. Absolutely. Please bring that to me.
Yeah.
But that is something that I also, too, am doing. And so are the board of directors is going to those conferences. We just got back from Boston. Several of us went, and we heard about some of the new technologies or options that we have available to us if we wanted to tap into it. So, yeah.
All right. So, I'm going to write this down because I'm going to ask this. I don't want to go out of my sequence here. We're talking about membership. All right. So we just talked about the G word, adding value to it. What are some things that, after you've been there now since July, so has it been
5 months?
5 months. Evaluating what's going on. What are some simple things that, not bringing in a new technology at the board, but just some simple things on how maybe how your staff operates, not the naysayer someone was doing something different, but just ideas that you've brought from Indiana that can just, I'm going to use the term friendlier. I don't know if that's not the right word, but just how you think some little things that you can implement directly as the CEO without necessarily going through the board to do that just add value to the members.
Well, I'll say one of the I want to say easiest things that I've done that I think is really important too is enhancing our communications. So I don't know that we've done a great job in the past, or well, I guess I shouldn't say I don't know. I didn't think we've done a great job in the past on how we communicate with our members. I like the communications to be clear, crisp, easy to look at, easy to read, and the links work, right? So those types of things are super important, and it's honestly not that hard to do those things. So that is one of the first things that I did was try to clean up those communications, and those are going to.
I'm going to go to the second page of my notepad here. Go ahead.
To continue to enhance the look and the feel of the communications that go out.
Communications from, like, give me a specific example, like an event happening or stuff that not enough words getting out, or what when you say communication, because that's because obviously you're providing education classes down there. What is it specifically about communications that you don't think is resonating, obviously, with what you hope to be the membership listening?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I will tell you that this challenge is not unique to us.
No.
So getting information to your members is tough for every organization.
Yeah.
Any company to get to their, whoever they're trying to get information to, it's hard to tap into them because, especially real estate professionals, I mean, they've got emails hitting them constantly. It's just very easy to scroll through. Oh my gosh, there's another one from the board. I mean, I know we send out a lot of things. So the first thing I've done is try to make our communications look and feel better. We just talked about that. The next piece of it is going to be how best do we communicate to our members? So we need to find out from them, how do you want us to communicate to you? One of the things hopefully on this new portal that we're going to look into doing is that instead of us blasting you with emails, is when you log in to get to the, your day, start your day, and you want to get to the listing service, that kind of thing, whatever important information that you maybe need to see is right there. And it's on your specific page, and it's information specific to you. So things that you might be interested in registering for, hey, are you interested in this? You can register now. Or
Yeah.
guess what? You have this thing coming up this week. It's at the board. Do you want to cancel? Okay, that kind of thing.
Well, I think you mentioned earlier, I don't know if we were recording at the time, but you mentioned, social media, this community, basically really a communications person is what you were looking for. I would say this, what I've learned in 19 years, but really probably the last 7, being outside of a call center and actually working with real estate agents, creating events, you have to pound them, and you have to pound them from all different directions, because you don't know are they on Instagram today, or are they on Facebook, or who's on Instagram.
7 times, 7 different ways, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure it's more than 7. And having that, but like I said, even when I log into my mortgage stuff, I mean, they've got something similar to what you're talking about. So when I was thinking about that, because it'll pop up and say, here are changes coming. Now, sometimes hey, I need to go in and do my loan. Get out of my way. But you have to be putting that up there. But I think the communications person, if they're being, come from training at whatever, and they're just from a marketing department, right? A lot of times you get these guys from marketing department, they don't understand. They just, hey, they produce this static post, or if say it's, on one of the social medias, or you have to repost it. You have to send it, maybe do a video on it, get someone to say something. What is going to get someone to stop? And like I said, just getting agents to come to an event, you have to pound them. I imagine, I'm just guessing, the Ricky Carruth event that you guys hosted, which was awesome. I would imagine I would look at who registered when, and I would bet 50% of them registered within a few days of the event. Because you had to pound them, and then they're like, hey, yeah, we're not doing anything that day. I'll go ahead and sign up. I'm 2 days out. I'll go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
But yes, to add value to the board, and I know you guys are trying to bring in more outside trainers. You have some great knowledgeable people in St. Augustine, but sometimes you need to bring in a little different.
Oh, it's good to have a good mix.
Tap
right?
dance. Yeah, 100%. So, letting people know that. And I would reach. I was writing down here. I would gladly help in that aspect, because I know how it takes to just have an event, let alone a class. Because some people don't even know the classes are going on, and they don't something distracts them, as we all do. We start doing, I'm going to go on the board site and see what education classes are happening this month, and then something distracts them, and they never actually get to the calendar, where it needs to be out in front all the time, every few days.
And I'm guilty of it too.
Yeah.
And I get it, because I sign up for things. Oh, that sounds interesting. Great. Put it on my calendar. And then, I just don't know if I can do that today. I just have too much going on. So I get it, but you're right. I think a lot of members do wait until, okay, I think I'm good. I'm not going to have a closing that day.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if I was going to. Yes, I can sign up now. And so we anticipate that.
To me, that's the lamest excuse in the book, though. My agent friends that are listening or might be listening to this later on, if you see an event, you need to schedule it. You need to tell the closing person, I'm not going to be available from 9 to noon. Very few of these events will last all day. We're going to close afternoon when I get done with that event, because I think we pass too much on some really good stuff because we're waiting for the phone to ring. It's like, dude, take control of it. You have control. Everyone's doing stuff. You just have something scheduled. The one thing I was like at Quicken Loans, they always said, if a customer calls in, let it go to voicemail. You might not have anything going on at the time, and you're like, oh, no, let it go to voicemail. Show them that you are busy, and that show them that you're busy. You have an important event that you have to attend, but you can close at 1:00, because that's my opinion.
No, I get it. And I will say to that, I feel you guys. I get it, because I do the same thing. But he's not wrong, because 9 times out of 10, when you do attend those events, you're like, no, I'm just going to go. You at the end are like, I'm so glad I went.
Yeah, you got a little something.
I did get something out of that. Yeah.
I put it again. It's all. I think the whole membership thing is, and we use the word value. So, and I put on here, why St. Augustine, and I think that's been a drive. I think Danielle Frazier, knowing her, this is as very elegant that she is and very, quiet, she slowly moves the needle, and I'm totally behind her. She wants St. Augustine Board to be great. I really, she didn't even have to tell me that. I could just feel it from her. And we have to get out there. Why St. Augustine? Why should, as we move further south in St. Johns County, every agent, in my opinion, who lives in St. John, St. Augustine, should be, maybe you belong to NEFAR, and I don't know, maybe there could be something like, hey, I'm a NEFAR member already, and I don't know, maybe you guys set up like a, they show that they're already a member there, but to get them to be members down there and participate and go to classes and go into that board, why St. Augustine is my question, and I'm sure that's something that's on your guys' mind all the time to attract members. But if you were sitting in front of somebody saying, "Why should I join the St. Augustine board?" Right? NEFAR's got more classes, or whatever, more events because they're much larger. But what is your pitch for St. Augustine?
Well, I will tell you that right now, the pitch is, come with me, right?
Right.
I'm here. I'm ready to bring fresh ideas and new benefits, services, conversations to our membership, and to individuals who are interested in joining, or potentially interested in joining. But the best thing I can say is that stay tuned.
I threw you on the spot on that one.
Stay tuned. Well, the thing is that's what I've done for the last 5 months, is really try to figure out who we are, what we want to be when we grow up, kind of thing. Right. Look, I will tell you that St. Augustine Board of Realtors, and honestly, ask me, why St. Augustine? Why did I come here? Why did I choose this one? Luckily, they chose me as well, but I saw something in this board that attracted me to it, and it was that they had a vision to provide great service. They had a foundation that was easy to work from, to provide that just outside the box benefits, services, customer service, all of those things. Their vision was very similar to my vision of what an organization like this particular association could be. And stay tuned. I mean, I will tell you that is going to be some of the work that we do over the next few months, is to really try to identify what are our current benefits, what is our current value, and then what kind of value do we want to bring to potential members in the future.
When you talk to maybe members, but as we know, a lot of members never even come in. They're like, what are some of the, because I imagine, whether you personally have reached out, I know the board, they're always trying to encourage, some new people to show up at some of the events. Maybe you've never been into the board for other than a class or something like that, to come to some of the socials or, the other things that are going on. What are some of the things that you're hearing from some of those people who aren't active right now, that they feel the board, needs to change, or, to be, I don't know, more welcome, to get them to come in? What are you hearing from that?
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is, I guess maybe the vibe I'm getting, or maybe they're not specifically saying that, but I almost feel like a lot of our members, we're not top of mind, right? They're just something I have to do, whatever. I don't have time for that. I'm working, trying to build my business or whatever. So 2025, I will tell you, the first quarter of 2025, my goal is to go out and talk to brokerages. I want to come to your brokerage. I want to talk to your members. Tell me what you think the association does for you.
Yes.
What do you love about what the association does for you? I will tell you, a lot of our members don't even know.
Exactly.
They don't even recognize that a lot.
It just happens, and they don't know how.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, when you're a kid, I don't know, the refrigerator gets full, or somehow my laundry gets done. Yeah, right? It's just always there. And you think about, if the association disappeared, poof, what would your business look like? How would you conduct your business?
Right.
So it's really just getting out and talking to the members, and getting them to understand that we are here for you. We do provide you all of these benefits and services, and how can we do better? What are you missing? What do you need? What do we offer that you don't think that is valuable? Having those conversations is going to first of all get them to know us, and us to get to know them, so that we can do better next year.
No, I mean that's brilliant. And hopefully they're very welcoming and get you in as soon as possible. But I do believe that's exactly it. Things are going on. And again, interviewed, over 200 of the top agents, and some of them are very deeply involved. Some of them, they only go in there for a class. And I think when someone enters real estate, I always, when I'm talking to the agents, one of the important questions is like, what brokerage you're part of. And there's some brokers that are very obviously involved in the board, you know them, and there's some brokers you never see in there. And why are they not involved? This is their business, and you're the, setting those cultural standards we talked about earlier in our conversation. How important is the business run? And if those things were to collapse or not be as stringently set, it could affect their business, because they're operating under those rules, those guidelines, right? And they need to be part of that. If you're taking a step to run a brokerage and lead people, you probably need to be coming to maybe be a board member or director or something, maybe show up some of the meetings and so forth, but be more involved and
encourage your agents to do that.
Yeah.
And I really do think the path to getting our members more engaged is through the brokers.
Yeah.
Is through the managing brokers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant. But to finish what I was actually, a lot of agents enter this business, and they I got another idea here. I'm going to write this down so I don't forget this. But they enter the business, and if they're not with that broker who's involved, I always throw Howard Flashin out there, because I believe Howard's so involved and engaged with what's happening in the industry, and he shares it with his agents, and he's involved obviously with NEFAR at the different things he does there. But if they're not involved, these agents enter the business, they choose that broker who's not involved. They don't understand why these things are happening behind the scenes. Why do they do things this way, right? And so they never truly move the needle in the industry or participate, because they just don't know it's there. Because when they enter, there's so many things happening in real estate. They don't have the opportunity to step back and look at it from 30,000 feet and see everything that's going on around them and get involved. So I think it's a great idea. Get the brokers in, whatever they should all be involved in one way or another. I think if someone's a broker not involved in some way, shape, or form at the board, at least being active to be in the know, I don't know what, that's part of the value proposition you give to these agents coming in.
Absolutely.
I don't know how we could implement this, but this was an idea that again, talking to a lot of agents, and I believe a lot of agents don't succeed. And we know 80% of them are gone before the first renewal, which I think in January we're going to see a lot drop out just because of what business has been. But we know 80% don't succeed or renew.
How many?
It's somewhere around 80%, I think, is that don't actually renew. They're gone in 2 years. Right.
80%.
Yeah, I believe that's the number. I mean, we can look up the details. No one's argued with me that. I saw it somewhere. A good percentage. We'll say a very good, a too high of a percentage.
Yes.
A too high of a percentage.
There is too high of it. I will agree with that. Yes.
Yes. All right. I think it's 80%, give or take. But anyway, too high of a percentage that don't renew or are not successful in the business. Now, granted, there's always people it's not them, right? That. But I believe the who they choose as a brokerage plays a huge part in that. And I think it would be, and I go back to a story my dad told me when I was young in the little township we grew up in I grew up in Massachusetts. When he was starting a business, he went to a board of other small business owners and, explained to him, what he wanted to do, whatever. And there was an exchange. Experienced business owners. I think there should be a board of experienced, respected real estate agents that have know this business coming, different, it's because it's run different ways, that these people who want to get in the business can come and sit in front of and explain it. I mean, we think it's not rocket science that they go and interview some different brokers. To that new agent who just got their license and their girlfriend works for whatever broker, that's the only vision they have of the entire industry. And that they should have the opportunity to come and sit in front of 3 or 4 or 5, brokers who may be doing their business totally separate, but totally neutral from the standpoint of, hey, this is me. Well, you need to know what is it, the questions they need to ask, or the question that to make that person think about the business. You know what I mean? How they want to enter. Okay. And, give them 20 brokers' names and phone numbers that'll gladly sit down and talk to them. But they need to, a lot of them don't even talk to the real estate agents. They only talk to the broker who is selling them on coming to that brokerage. They think they're getting hired. It's like most of these brokerages will sign up anyone who wants to come on, most of them. You know what I mean? But I think there should be a board where just this neutral party that they can come in and experienced people can exchange with them. This is the business. This is what you got to expect. We can assume they all know this, but we're going to continue having the failure rate because they're just not getting the right launch. They just don't know enough about the business. They just think it's showing houses. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're describing is that missing piece between the licensing education, right, the pre-licensing class, and actual practice. It's almost like real estate could benefit from what is it that the physicians do, that
internship,
like an internship or a practical education where you're required to go with like 4 different brokerages or something to earn your practical education piece of it.
Right.
That's a tough one because trying to pull something like that off would be.
Well, Florida Realtors, we're on their faculty to teach the intro to real estate finance. They tell you, obviously I can't go in there and say, hey, I work for Town Bank and, hey, this, that, and the other thing. I could probably talk about the podcast. No one would probably care about that, but I can't talk. I work for Town Bank and, hey, if you want to, call me, I can do your loan. You can't do that. Yeah, exactly. So the same way these it could be even retired agents. I don't necessarily know that would be good because, as we know, there are some people who don't practice anymore that come into the board.
I don't know that I know of a retired
I would
agent.
want to be more engaged. I would be more engaged, maybe some larger broker, but that could sit down and have these discussions because I just don't. Although they can find that discussion if they make the phone call, but as mostly they don't know anybody. Yeah. So to be able to put them in front of some of these people to say, hey. I when I talk about this, I often think of Kim Knapp over at Coldwell Bank. Kim's passed on some great agents because she told them to go interview with some other places, and they went and signed up with somewhere else. And we laugh about it because now years later they're a great real estate agent, and Kim told them to go somewhere, go interview. But that's they fit in there, and obviously their success because they actually took the time to have those discussions. So as go back to the board and as the CEO. Membership, retaining real estate agents that are actively and doing well in the industry. I mean, that's just a thought that I, threw out there for these people who are just getting in the business. Is there something the board could do that offers me once a month or something that, hey, and reaches out to these people who are in these real estate classes, or, hey, you thinking about going to real estate? Come in, there's some different instructors that are going to be there. You can choose what school you want to do, or you want to do it online, but we're just going to talk about real estate and things you can do. And nobody, there's no sales, there's nobody trying to recruit anybody, but we're just talking, this is the business basically. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, honestly, I mean, that's exactly what, not exactly, but it's close to what I did when I worked for MIBOR, is created the MIBOR Master Professional Certification Program, MPRO for short. But it was essentially, it was to address professionalism issues like we talked about earlier, but it was also to help like new members who are just getting started in the business and trying to bridge that gap, right? Because the licensing course teaches you essentially how to pass the exam, right?
How to not get in trouble.
How not to get in trouble, how to pass the exam, the very basic foundational things that you need to know.
Right.
But it doesn't really teach you how to deal with the real world, right? You're out there practicing. Now, granted, you're managing broker. It needs to be a good resource for you. And whatever brokerage you're working with is going to provide their education. But the certification program that we created at MyBor kind of fills in those blanks. Talks about the questions that new members typically ask, right? Like, how do I deal with this type of situation? Or what do I do if this happens? Those types of things were things that certification program taught. So that's kind of what, oh no, you're going to ask me another question?
No, I've got another idea. Go ahead. Are you ready to get off, Jeanette?
No,
I'm not letting you off too easy here.
but anyway, so that's something like what you're talking about, right? It's like that kind of that after, okay, you got your license, now what? And yeah, you've joined a brokerage. You need to go get a listing. You need to go help a buyer find a house. How do we help you succeed so that you don't get discouraged? You don't have that churn of members, getting into the business and saying, I just couldn't do it and letting it go. How do we help them find success? And yeah, I mean, that's.
Oh, well, so you were talking about getting more brokers involved. I would be very interested if you surveyed across, the brokers that are just within miles of the office down there. How many of them actually, have a green agent training? Now, Keller Williams is just down the street. They're known for that. They're huge. But that might not be, they might have just signed up with the boutique brokerage who doesn't necessarily have those resources. And this is just, I'm just talking off the cuff for the idea when you were saying, I'm going to give you another idea.
Yeah, I know where you're going.
But but to the board step in, and it's volunteer. You want to show up or not, but maybe you get some of these new agents committed to showing up, once every couple of weeks or whatever it is. But, they are training on some of these really down rubber meets the road activities in training, and this, these are different ways you can do this, because the one thing I find in the conversation is, because this business is done so many different ways, there's some people that can knock on doors and they like doing it and they get results. Some people are like Ricky Carruth and they just love having those conversations, right? The faster you find that thing that you are successful at and like doing, I think the like is a big part of that, and the success probably is second. The better you're going to be able. So where can maybe some of these smaller boutique brokerages, because they have the total privilege to have these, can send some of their agents to, go to a class for a couple hours every couple of weeks or whatever, where you rotate in, the top people who are in the area who are volunteering as other real estate agents to raise the bar of the quality of service, but to help some of these agents maybe dull down. As Ricky Carruth, that was one thing he told me. His goal was to lower that failure percentage. He wanted to have more successful real estate agents. Is kind of why he gave coaching away for like 7 years. You know what I mean? I don't know, just something, a thought that just came to my head when I was talking.
These are things that we've long tried to do. I think the challenge is that the brokerages, some of them, like the larger ones, like you said, who have their own program, don't want us teaching their agents how they want to teach them is one challenge. The other challenge is that
their failure rate's just as high.
Well, we as an association don't want to take away a brokerage's ability to differentiate themselves from other brokerages. Like, come work for my brokerage because I'm going to give you the training to be successful. The association, while some, like the smaller boutique brokerages or the whatevers that have the smaller ones or don't have the training available, may want to take advantage of something like that, but you can also get pushback from the larger brokerages.
I totally agree. There's a selfishness involved and an ego involved in that, and you're only going to get people. What's interesting is the top people that I've had on are all collaborators. If you call them and say, "Can I have a cup of coffee with them?" they'll find a way to have a cup of coffee with you and tell you how they did their business, because in reality, they know there's a very small percentage that are actually going to execute on what they tell them. Maybe some that'll take some of their ideas and be successful. There's unfortunately many of them will never do anything. They'll sit down for an hour with you talking and they'll never do anything about it, even though you gave them a little tip or a little, turn of the other thing. I throw that out there because it does take that leap of faith. And I think you got to put the egos aside, because a failing agent, 0 out of 0 is 0.
Right.
And, that's someone's livelihood. You got someone who you just took in, supposedly you care about them. You took them into your brokerage, but if your brokerage is not helping them get going and out of the nest.
Well, and if you look at it, big picture
you just wasted a lot of time.
You are putting your agents out there to work with individuals who, on the other side of the transaction, we hear this all the time. Well, I had to do all the work because they didn't know what they were doing.
Exactly.
Well, if we could help train that other side of the agent, the other side of the table, then it will be less painful for your agent who you've trained well.
Yeah.
So that was kind of always our
yeah. Well, it raises the bar for the whole industry
exactly.
as a whole.
Exactly.
All right. We dig it. There is a long list of, probably a bunch of stuff we do, and we've been trying to drilling down on some bigger topics. But if we could finish up just with some of the things that you're doing on a daily, what the CEO's doing. Like I said, I think I asked a question earlier that a lot of people don't know you're doing on a daily basis. Why do you show up at 8:00 in the morning or whatever time you come in? What are you doing as far as the staff and they're obviously, you're paying people, the membership's paying people on staff. What are they doing on a daily basis that's going on behind the scenes?
Oh my gosh. I will tell you that, since I started, I typically get to the office between 7:30 in the morning, which is nice.
Quiet time.
It's quiet, yes. I can get a lot of, head down, focus work done during that time, and usually don't leave until 5:30, 6 o'clock, sometimes 7, depending on how burnout I am by the end of the day. But yeah, there's it. You're right. A lot of people don't realize how much goes into running an association, and I'm sure there are individuals who think, well, you don't need that much staff, or you don't need to be, paying them whatever, but they truly do not understand how much work it takes to run an association. I will say that obviously this is my first time serving as CEO, came from a larger organization, granted, and I was part of the leadership executive team, if you will, at my board, so I understood kind of what all goes into running an organization. But luckily I was able to understand it, but then I was really only responsible for my particular area.
Right.
But yeah, it's I think a lot of it I probably put on myself, and so does the staff, because, just doing the day-to-day operations of paying the bills and calling this person back and scheduling for this event and, registering for this webinar and attending the webinar. And then I have to prepare for the board meeting. And then I got to do the minutes. And then I've got to, we have a hearing coming up. I've got to assemble the hearing panel.
Right.
That is literally a half a day for me. That I just described to you. Yeah. And meanwhile, I'm also trying to create efficiencies. So, and no dig against any prior CEO or anybody who's ever taken over for someone, but I guarantee you the person that came in behind me was like, why'd she do it this way? Why did she,
that's
make it better.
Standard procedure.
That's why it's always good to have these kind of shifts, every so often. But there was a lot of things that I came into going, why are we doing this?
Right.
And why, trying to find already cost savings. I can't even tell you how much little things, it's just the little things of like, can we get a contract for this that is lower? Or why do we have 2 things that are doing this? Or why is this person doing it this way when this is the easier way to do it? Let's try to find those efficiencies. And so those are some of the things that I've been working on over the last several months.
Is there a lot of things that the board has to do, like behind the scenes, as far as like compliance, like dealing with the state or just being part of Florida Realtor?
Yeah, it is. There's a lot. So the National Association of Realtors has an annual core standards requirement. And if you've never heard of that, find your thank your lucky stars you've never heard of it, because it's no fun. But it's essentially a requirement to be a part of the National Association of Realtors. The local associations, and I believe even the state associations, have to do certain things. You have to meet certain requirements, and you have to do certain things throughout the year to ensure that you are still, in the good graces, if you will, of the National Association of Realtors. And it's a good thing, because we don't want nationally, associations out there not doing what, at least the bare minimum.
Right.
But yeah.
Because you're setting the standard, and it's coming down. National Association recommends to the state of Florida.
Right.
Florida recommends to you. These are practices that we see to be the best practices to maintain the integrity of the business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, too, the Florida Realtors, Florida Association of Realtors, we've got to name who we want from our board to serve on their board of directors. And we got to name who do we want from our board to serve on the National Association of Realtors. So it's a lot of things that people don't realize happen behind the scenes, like you said, that I'm sure I'm only talking about the tip of the iceberg. I can't even put into words like all of the different things.
I think the members out there, the agents who maybe just heard that and didn't realize, because they've never walked in and said, "Hey, what do you do?" or come in and sat there and seen what you guys are doing on a daily basis. To know
and
that
I
this,
invite you to come do that, but I'll probably put you to work.
Come in and volunteer for a day.
Yeah.
But those things is what keeps the integrity and the ethics, and maybe why some people fall out, because they're eliminate the bad apples, so to speak. Is you got to have some of these hoops that people need to go through, because everyone says the cost of entry or the level of entry to get into business is fairly low. Go take the course and pass the test. Most people can do that to a reasonable level. They put some sort of effort in it, and you're in. You got a real estate license. But really, it's what you're doing behind the scenes that the level of standards that really sets the bar. And some people don't want to rise to that bar, and the business is not for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, we covered a lot.
Yes, we did. But hopefully everyone's listening got a little bit to know you and your qualifications, because I wouldn't say outrightly, because I'm not on that side, to say you're overqualified. You're very qualified. I think your experiences, because I think I know there's politics involved, and you've worked with that at a level, and how to deal with the changes of administrations and stuff, and people's personalities, and there's many people involved at that board, there's that many different personalities, and you have to be good at dealing with that, and not when hopefully they're not walking out the door going, "Oh, she's a..."
Not yet.
Not yet.